Okay, so I'm just going to do my trade recap here on a live as well, and then I'll post the video, the recording. So here's what I was looking for. Okay. On the weekly, looking to take the previous weekly high. Just that's our objective for the week. That's not our daily objective. It could be. It definitely could be, but that isn't what I was targeting today, intraday wise at least. Daily doesn't give us much other than the fact that we're bullish. I mean, previous daily high is the previous weekly high, so that's even more of a reason why we could potentially see it get taken today. Again, not what I was reaching for though. Now we were inside of a 4-hour fair value gap. Okay, so we have our PD array that we need. Awesome. Do you see anything up here? Well, equal highs. Okay, cool. More equal highs. Drawn liquidity is very, very obvious here, in my opinion. Going into this, right? So, and we also had this hourly fair value gap. Now you'll notice the 4-hour fair value gap actually got closed below, but I was still willing to take this because we were inside of an hourly fair value gap that was holding. Okay, and then an obvious sweep on sell side, which is our model, right? Now what I was looking for is I just had to wait and see. I had to wait for a break of structure and some distribution to happen, and I didn't really like here. I didn't think that was enough distribution to enter, but that could have been an entry. Here is where I was like, okay, fine, we have enough reason to enter. We have distribution, we have a fair value gap. We've clearly a broken structure at this point. I'll enter. I entered off the fair value gap. I held all the way until this candle here. I wasn't comfortable with continuing to hold it, and I'll explain why. So my first objective, which I really wish I had the ability to take a contract off at, I just couldn't. I mean, it was too close to my entry, but this high was really acting as resistance for quite a long time, and I knew that we had to take this. There's no way we weren't going to take this before I was stopped. There's just no way. So I was okay to hold through all this because we hadn't taken that yet. Once we took this and essentially once we took this and we entered into a 5-minute fair value gap inside of a 15-minute fair value gap, bearish, by the way, the bearish fair value gap, right? I was less inclined to hold through it. I really wanted to see it just continue. If it continued, I would have held through it. If it didn't, which it didn't, I was going to just take off the trade at break even, which is what I did. Another reason why I wasn't willing to hold this, I would have been, I'll be honest with you, I would have held this if it was reacting off of this bearishly. I would have still held it if there was a reason for it to go lower other than the bearish fair value gap. Like for instance, if it was coming back into a bullish fair value gap, but it wasn't. There's nothing here. There's no PD arrays. If it was coming back into a bullish inversion fair value gap, but there's nothing here that it had a reason to come back down for. So I said, you know what, I'm out. So I lost like $10. It was a break-even trade, and that's that. We'll see where it continues for the rest of the day. It was extremely choppy once I entered, but again, I was okay with holding it up until here because this was just obvious. This was an obvious draw, and then after this obvious draw, there wasn't much left within range that was obvious for us to come for. So, there was multiple factors why I decided to just take off the trade break even. Number one, like I just said, once we took this obvious draw here on the 1 minute, there wasn't much left to come for nearby that I was willing to hold for, other than the obvious draw here, which was my final take profit, this high here, but nothing else really in between. I was going to take some partials here once we tapped into the inversion fair value gap here. I was going to take some partials, but yeah, it just didn't look I just used my intuition here. I really did. Like, I could be. I mean, dude, this thing could run. Who knows? It could still run. Um, but I wasn't liking what I was seeing. It just, I needed. It's one of those things where it looks so nice on a higher time frame. It's like, okay, this is obviously where we're going. But you go lower and it looks pretty dog shit. Um, Good enough for an entry, but then once I entered, it was just so choppy. And I get it. It's Monday. It is NFP week. We're also a week out from, or a little over a week out from the election. I mean, there's a lot of factors right now that would make price unfavorable, but this looked, I mean, this was an A+ setup, I'll be honest. Like, everything about this, we had such an obvious draw on liquidity, such an obvious sweep. We were inside a higher time frame PD array. We had, the only thing that wasn't A+ was the distribution we got for the entry, but it was still good enough for me to enter. And we had broken structure, so I was willing, but that was the one thing that wasn't super great. You know, do I regret entering this trade? Absolutely not. I just said it was an A+ setup, and I'm going to execute on those 100 times out of 100 times. So I followed my trading plan today, so it was a good day. So far, right? We'll continue to follow our trading plan, but the reason I say so far is because we'll be back for the PM session most likely. Yeah, so I don't regret entering this at all. As far as managing the trade, you know, in hindsight, if it hits my final TP, I'm gonna be like, I'm not going to think any different of what I think right now. I'm not upset about the fact that I decided to break even this trade. The way price was moving after my entry and my reason, I mean, you need a reason behind why you do something. It can't be, oh, I'm just nervous. I'm nervous it's going to take me out. No, that can't be your reason. Your reason can't be psychological. Your reason has to be logical. Okay? So my reason was logical. Okay? We had taken this, like I said, and in my opinion, there was no reason for us to go lower. There wasn't any PD array that needed to be filled down here after we entered into the 5-minute fair value gap / 15-minute fair value gap, bearish fair value gaps, right? So logically, it was looking like we might just respect those fair value gaps and go lower. So I had proper reasoning as to why I broke even, and I'm, you know, at the end of the day, most important thing is to protect mental capital and also real capital. You want to protect both those things at all costs when you're trading, and I did that today. I mean, look at this. If I was still in this, bro, like, my mental capital is getting fucking drained, man. Like, this is ridiculous. This price action is ugly as hell. So, you know, we'll see. It might be one of those days where, I mean, we've essentially consolidated all AM session here. It might be one of those days where we get a run during lunch session. Too early to tell still, but I mean, it's possible. It happened the other day where we ran during lunch session, and because we consolidated during all of AM session. Yeah, this is just so ugly. I don't know how else to put it. But yeah, that's the trade recap. Yeah.